Hello everyone, welcome to a special HBR series commemorating the 10th year anniversary of Argüden Governance Academy, where we talk to prominent governance experts from around the world. And today we have with us Sandra, who is a prominent Brazilian corporate governance expert and a board member for 30 years. She is also author of the book, The Black Box of Governance, where she has looked into board of directors revealed by those who inhabit them. And today we're going to talk more about the insights from her book and her 30-year journey in corporate governance. So please join me in welcoming Sandra. Welcome, Sandra. It's good to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Gizem, and thank you to Wilmar for the invitation. It's a pleasure.
Let me start by asking a little bit about your journey in governance. What inspired you to start working on corporate governance and becoming a board member, and how did you see the landscape change over the years? Because you've been working in this field for a very long time now.
Yeah. Well, it all started with a person, Bengt Hallquist, Swedish citizen living in Brazil back then for many, many years. And he was very uncomfortable with how boards back then, I'm talking about 95, how boards were doing their job, or better than they were not doing their job. So from this feeling, he invited me to be in a meeting. I was working with him previously as a consultant in communication, which was my field back then. And from those conversations, we created what is today the Brazilian Institute of Corporate Governance. It started with the Board of Directors Brazilian Institute. But then we realized 5 years later that we're not interested in creating a professional body, but an organization that would improve corporate governance in Brazil. So that was how I was involved with that. I knew nothing in the beginning, and I would say that back then in 95 in Brazil, almost everyone knew nothing about governance. And the ones who were really starting to understand would not like our discussions and propositions. So it was a long, long journey. 29 years now. Next year, the Brazilian Institute will be celebrating the 30th anniversary. And there was a lot of progress, I can say, Gizem. But there, as we normally say, good governance is a journey, not a destination. So as you reach a certain point, you are ready to observe around, to test the good governance that you use, and then to learn that you have to make other improvements to adjust to the context, or because there is a learning process in the marketing regarding some of the practices. So lots of progress is in this 29 years, but still a lot to do ahead of us.
Yeah. And in your book, Black Book of Governance, one of the topics that you emphasize is diversity. And diversity not just in terms of numbers, but in terms of diversity of mind and how a board functions inside the boardroom. So let me start by asking what inspired you to write this book, and then maybe we can go into some of the intricacies that you talk about.
Well, the focus of the book actually is the behavioral factors involved with a board of directors. And why I was thinking about that. As we just covered, I was in the inception of the corporate governance movement, let's say, like this in Brazil in 95. So in the organization, we are working to create a code. We create a training program for directors. The same, in the beginning, the Brazilian corporate law was under review. So lots of improvements, And then we saw in, out of Brazil, the corporate scandals. The more famous one is Enron. Yeah. And everyone was asking what the board was doing that they didn't see what was happening in the company. So lots of improvements, regulation, Sarbanes-Oxley, for instance, all the codes internationally were changed. And then 8 years later, the global financial crisis, again, a crisis rooted in governance issues. Right? So, and then I thought, well, why we are keep improving practices, regulation, self-regulation, you name it, training people, and then we think that we are better than before, and then there is another crisis, and then we realize that no, the governance was not functioning, and the board of directors was not doing a proper role. That was the beginning of my, I wasn't uncomfortable with that, and I started to try to find why this would be happening. And I found this behavioral aspect and started to study that. So although you may have, because that's what we saw in 2008-9, so it was all there, all the parts are there. I mean, it seemed to us that all parts were there. Like in Enron, you had the board with professional people. I will not list all the conditions that were that seemed to everyone else out of the company that they had a good board and a good governance. So I started to research these behavioral factors involved in the board dynamics, and then from that, I started to talk with experts around the world. I had the opportunity to interview, let's say, the gurus of corporate governance around the world. I talked to Ira Milston, Sir Adrian Cudbury, Robert Monks, Mervyn King, and you name it. So researching the behavioral elements, the board dynamics, and talking with the practitioners and gurus of corporate governance, I developed the black box of governance. And diversity, that we're going to talk later, is one of the elements that I cover in the book.
Yeah. So maybe we dive a little bit deeper into diversity. And as you said, it's more than numbers. It's more about what happens in the boardroom. And why do you think diversity, or why have you found that diversity is important for board effectiveness? And how can you facilitate it in a board?
Because what we normally would find in boards still, and of course, it's you have a variety of models that companies adopt around the world. So you have champions in governance, and you have the ones that are today discovering what is governance and the practices and so on. So you have
different levels of maturity.
Yeah, absolutely. But what you normally see is a very, let's say, uniform boards. So mostly male, possibly coming from the same background, or a majority of people coming from a certain background. Geographically, they are also very similar. So when you have this board that, everyone is possibly very similar to each other, you don't have other perspectives to challenge the ideas. And that's the beautiful of diversity. Coming from different backgrounds, different gender, and different everything, let's summarize here. you have people with different perspectives around the same topic that can challenge the ideas that are, presented to the board. And from this discussion that presents contrasts in views, exploring other alternatives that were not brought by the executives, for instance, you will have a more robust decision process. So I understand that there is an approach to diversity linked to social justice around the world, and it's absolutely understandable. But what I'm bringing here is the approach that it matters, it creates value. It's not only because you have to do this because your company is a good citizen. No, you can do this and you can get this reputation as well. But I would say that your main reason would be to have a diverse thinking in the board that could prevent that the board will not see, a hurricane coming, for instance.
So to see different perspectives, you want to have a range of ages, different experience, gender, functional experience. But once you have a diverse board, one thing that you also talk about is the role of the chair and how the chair facilitates the discussion between the board members is also very important in deciding whether that diversity can be useful for the company. Can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, the role of the chair is paramount in the function of the board. I use an expression that Sir Adrian Cadbury used in his book about chairman, which is the idea that the chair is a regent of an orchestra. So he or she will not play any instrument. And possibly, although they are very regions around the world, like themselves, to say the least. So they show up in acting. But, a good region, a good maestro, would get from each instrument and player the best of it. So that's, the main characteristic of a chair that would be bring for each of the board members their best. And many times this is not knowledge or expertise in the matter, but it's another perspective coming from a different background that will see that topic in a different manner. Mm-hmm. I have dedicated a whole chapter to the chair in my book. Because the role of the chair is, fundamental. Important. You may have a very good board team, expertise, responsibility, accountability, whatever. But if you don't have a chair that facilitates, creates a psychological comfort in the board where the ideas are welcome, even if it's an idea that goes against the thoughts of everyone else. So you create this environment of comfort so everyone can bring new perspectives, can disagree, of course, in a manner, in a good manner that this would be done, that has to be done. I say in the book that conflict is not a linear thing in the board of directors, a linear variable. It's not if more, the worse, and if less. There is a certain level that you have to have, a certain level of conflict. And here, although some psychologists would not agree with the approach that, productive conflict or destructive conflict, I would say that in the concept of group dynamics, board dynamics, there is a certain level that is necessary because you have to prevent conformity in the boardroom where everyone thinks the same, talk the same. But it's not a matter only of perspective. You have to create the environment where the ideas can be really exchanged in a very comfortable manner. And there, the role of the chair is very important. So, the chair is not supposed to be the first one to speak about a topic. Quite the contrary. He or she would be the last one to speak. So, bringing all the perspectives, not creating conditions, including to that person in the board that is, more shy. It's a newcomer in the industry, but has, a good contribution to bring to the board, although not coming from the industry. So the role of the chair is to bring these ideas of these persons, call this person to speak. The role of the board is talking out of the board meetings with each of the directors to understand the level of understanding of a topic that they would have. So it's quite important, the role of the board, and I would say that we are developing this culture of this new chair. So it prevails still the concept that the most important and powerful person in the room. And this is not a good leader of a board.
So a good chair is a good facilitator and a bringer out of ideas. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
And what about the board members? We think about the skills that they bring in, but you also mentioned in your book that there are behavioral competencies that are required for board members for this environment to be functioning well. So what are these behavioral soft skills, let's say, that board members should have, and how can new board members prepare for their role?
Yeah, so the composition of the board is a very sensitive and complex equation. You have to be aware of, the industry competencies that you bring aboard, the functions that were that this person's had in the past, the knowledge, the academic background. So we are talking here about hard skills. So, and with the hard skills, you have also, after the hard skills, you have to consider the other aspects of diversity. And we are talking about gender, geography, age, you name it. And then there are the soft skills, which is a new topic for most of the board directors. And it's a very important element because when you don't have the soft skills in the board, you possibly do not contribute with all the knowledge, experience that you have. Or because you are not able to bring your idea in a manner that, will be heard by others, or because you will not be able to communicate well your ideas and your thoughts. And you may ask, well, what are you talking about, soft skills? I mean, there are many that we should work, but I think that the main one, if I have to mention one, is active listening. Most of the time, you will see board of directors trying to express their visions. Better, convincing the others about their vision. Instead, you see, board is a collegiate, it's a body, right? And it's superior in regards to individuals taking decisions. And why is that? Because you have many perspectives. But if you don't play with these many perspectives, you don't get the better of a board. And to do so, you have to create an openness in the board that all the ideas will be, contrasted with against one another. And for that, you need to listen, but genuinely trying to see the other's point of view. So what would be a very wrong behavior in the board? You are the CEO of the company, and you bring a proposition to create another production plant in another place, in another state. And you present it. I am a board director. I'm very influential in the board eventually because I am an expert in the topic that we in our business. And I say the first statement that I do, and it's the first one in the board. Gizem, really, I don't believe this is the way we should go. I don't believe this plant will do I don't believe that the place is right, etc., and etc. What happened in the board at that very moment? The others will consider, well, Sandra is an expert in the industry. So now I have two possibilities. I'm in favor of Gizem or I'm in favor of Sandra. So I have to position myself in one of the two positions. And that's very wrong because between these two positions, there is a variety of possibilities here that are simply lost from that point on in the board. Of course, this could be changed with a good chair, with other directors that would propose a discussion and another perspective, alternatives to be discussed. So you don't present your opinions and positions in the very first moment. You open the topic for discussion. So the good board meeting is no one leaves the board with the same position that they entered the board. So it's a construction, it's a tapestry that everyone will do together with an element here, another element here. So if you leave the boardroom with your position intact, no good, because you didn't learn or benefited from any other specter. It's some minor thing eventually. But that's the whole idea, that, all the positions and there are many mechanisms that could be used to make us safe from our biases and also from the noise that can be in the boardroom.
That actually brings me to the next question. This is an area that you write about, the biases that capture boards and sometimes prevent them from seeing different perspectives, seeing things clearly, going into groupthink. Can you talk a little bit about how biases are affecting boards and what can be done to protect them?
Right. In my book, I cover a variety of biases, and they are organized in the book in individual biases and group biases. In individual one, I present a taxonomy that I use from a researcher with 37 biases structured in categories. So one of the categories is memory, for instance. You think that you can remember very well what happened 20 years ago in an industry where you were, let's say, CFO, and you had an experience and the results were this and that. So you were very confident of, taking a decision now in this board based on the memory that you have regarding that experience 20 years ago. And researchers have been doing works in U.S., for instance, they would take, historical facts like the murder of Kennedy and other situations like this, and they would interview the same people from time to time. And what they find, of course, you know it, the facts are becoming blurry through time. Unless you revisit the story, the pictures, etc., you will not remember exactly as you were in the beginning. There are others, like, for instance, statistical biases, and even statisticians are vulnerable to that. Yeah, for instance, there is a sample bias where they made the research saying, I'm changing the facts and the names, but they're asking, Frank is a very shy person, very smart. Does he work in a library or in a bank? And the responses were he works in a library, because they were captured from the word shy. So shy in banks, and choosing this, the respondents would not consider that, at least at the time of the research, that there would be many more banks branches around U.S. than libraries. Of course, this will not apply in the future, because we see less and less, because we are doing our bank's activities right here. But when the research was done, so they would not consider that the probability would be that he would work in a bank, because the sample was much bigger than libraries. So this is one of another bias. When I go to group bias, I will mention the more common one, which is group thinking. Mm-hmm. And group thinking is associated with that element that I say that was conformity in the boardroom. So low diversity, a strong leader, this all combined would lead to group thinking, where everyone thinks alike, or if you do not think alike, you don't have the environment to challenge
to bring it up.
The thinking, and to discuss about it. To give one example of group bias.
Thank you. One more question I have is around sustainability. You've been in boards for a very long time. I'm sure you've seen how the board has changed in terms of its relationship to sustainability, how it has become part of the agendas, part of the board structures. What is the state of the boards in terms of how they approach sustainability, and especially in terms of seeing the economic and the ESG factors as an integrated whole in terms of how the company creates value?
Gizem, I've been involved with the integrated report since the inception. I was very happy to be actually in the designing of the guidelines, the framework of integrated report that was in the council back then, and it was launched in 2013. So, and I mentioned that because this is my perspective. So back then, 2011, 12, 13, where we were discussing the framework, and now, again, you have companies that are very, very mature, and you have companies that even are considering.
Since the beginning.
And we have an issue and a problem here. All the awareness that was created throughout this, let's say, 10 or even more, 15, 20 years, has created a wave against it. So we know, particularly in U.S., there are very active investors and pension funds in states that are doing whatever they can to prove that this is not, sustainability would not be creating value. And I think that the concept of ESG, with the popularity that gained, is now, creating this wave against it. But I would say that companies that, companies that had suffered issues for not taking care properly of all the elements of sustainability, they learn very fast what they should do. And I've been in boards where I have seen this in reality. So it really makes the whole difference when you suffer, like us people, right? You learn in life by, suffering. Unfortunately, you didn't learn when you are having a hot chocolate and seeing a good movie in a very comfortable position. And there are others that didn't suffer, but they have created, because possibly they have a management and board of directors that really have tackled all the issues with, considering different perspectives, that they got mature in good governance. And then they are able to understand the value per se of sustainability. Because you imagine, we have two factors, populational factors, that are, for me, very clear. You have the millennials coming to a position where they have a very important position in the wealth creation, starting to respond to this wealth allocation around the world. And you have also women in a position of, I'm talking about this because I have been reading lots of studies in regards to that. So women responding for the consumption, 66% in U.S. of, all the decisions are made by women. So I'm talking about two groups in the population that we know, because they have been expressing, they are keen in regards to sustainability. They eventually will not take one product, but will take another, because that company, it works well, the sustainability factors in the business. So you cannot deny that. So there is a number of discussions going around, but, you cannot change the idea that the great part of the population is increasing their understanding and their willingness of having companies, organizations that would, yes, create profit, a lot of profit, but doing that first, responding for a need of the society and creating value for all stakeholders in all these organizations, these operations.
So basically taking a wider view of who you appeal to, your stakeholders, what factors do you consider in creating value, and looking at it more long term.
Yeah, because you create a goodwill that is, it's difficult to insert this in a spreadsheet, right? When you calculate value. And that's the beauty of the integrated report, considering 6 capitals that goes into the business model, and consider how these 6 capitals is delivered back to the society as a whole. And among them, nature, relationships, natural capital, and people, and so. You will find, particularly the younger people coming to companies now, they would value more the purpose of the company many times than the immediate salary that they're going to get. It's very different from 30 years ago. So how do you measure this attraction of talent to your company? the attraction of, your value chain. Imagine during COVID, for instance, and I was in a board and I saw this happening. The executives immediately, it's a huge company, huge. I'm talking one of the biggest companies in Brazil and a leader in the industry around the world. And of course, this company would have many, many suppliers, big ones, but small ones. So management work in trying to identify the smaller ones to understand their needs and what did they decide to anticipate the payments for those, because they knew that they would die during the COVID period. They would not have the resources to survive. They were being good citizens. Yes, they were, but at the same time, they were creating. First, they were maintaining their suppliers because they're going to need the suppliers, and better suppliers that would be loyal to the company for good, because, you never forget someone who saved you. So This is intangible and very difficult, as I said, to capture in an Excel spreadsheet. But this is really intrinsic value of, considering sustainability to guide your business and create value, but creating all these elements.
Yeah. And apart from sustainability, digitalization, AI, and other topics are also becoming important for boards. What do you see in the next decade will be important in boards in terms of the new things coming up, either in terms of hard skills or soft skills? Where is the trend going, and how can boards bring themselves up?
Well, first of all, the business are completely changing. So as a board director, you have to, constantly understand, get the knowledge necessary to navigate on these changes. It's not about to the company to offer training to you. You have to go yourself, dedicated time, do whatever. There are so many options. For instance, I normally would choose at least one big event or big study tour where I would dedicate it to innovation, technology and innovation. So I've been to Israel, I've been to Silicon Valley, all over the places. Yeah, this year I've been to South by Southwest, which is an innovation festival in Austin, Texas. So you have to be tuned, learn all the time. And this is about the business, how the business is changing, trends, the business model, and so on. But at the same time, the board functioning will be affected by all this. So can we anticipate it that in 5 years' time, we are going to have the same model of having each 2 months in some of the regions? In Brazil, it's very common that boards will have monthly meetings, at least 10 in a year. So is this prevailing in the future? Or are we changing? So we are going to have, for instance, AI, not only for the company, but for the topics that are coming to the board. So instead of using my time to process and compare information previous to the board meeting, I will use AI to do that. And all these interactions among information from the past, information from the industry, the proposition, and then I'm going to use the better skill of humans because the processing part would not be necessary to do. Second, the velocity of changing around the world would require a more intensive interaction with the company? I believe so. Does it mean that the board director will be every day in the company? No. But there will be the need to have more interaction about board and management, possibly in different manner, not in a board meeting, very structured all the time. But I believe that there will be need to have a different approach. And there is the concern, I have the concern that this interaction that will be more frequent can eventually lead some of directors to be more, to try or, to interfere in the operation, which is not the case. So you have to maintain your approach from the forest view, while management would be the tree. We'll have the tree view, even the leaf view. So it's difficult. It's a challenge for directors to maintain that, but being more interactive with the company, with the management, to understand the velocity of changes. So I think that this will lead to different perspectives and change in board structure, in board functioning, and board composition, to respond to these very fast changes that we are witnessing for many years.
Yeah. And let me end by asking, what's next for you? Any projects or topics you're focusing on going forward?
I'm trying, besides being a board director for 29 years, I have a consultancy firm, Better Governance, founded in 2005. So next year we are going to celebrate the 20th anniversary. And we do board evaluations for many, many years. As I've been studying a lot the behavioral factors, and I do a training program of soft skills for board directors with an expert on mediation. I'm working to improve the board evaluation. We do consider already behavioral factors, but I want to improve that. So, and this requires a lot of research and studies.
Yeah. Sounds very interesting. Thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you.
It was my pleasure, Gizem, and congratulations for the organization for the anniversary.
Thank you very much.